about Ryan Day up into the playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kenner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome in. It's the Justin Kenner Show presented by Frickers live here on a Monday. I hope everybody had a great weekend. The first round and the second round of the NCAA tournament is officially in the books. Ratings are up from a year ago, but why is everyone acting as if the NCAA tournament is all of a sudden just trash? It's no good. It's boring. I can admit that this tournament this season has not been that exciting. There has not been many buzzer beaters or any buzzer beaters. There has not been many upsets. A lot of single-digit seeds just continue to advance through the tournament. But that's the thing that's always fascinating to me about the NCAA tournament. What is it that you want from any postseason? To crown a champion, to have the best teams in college basketball, the best teams in the NBA, the best teams in the NFL, Major League Baseball, competing for a championship. That's what you want. So to say that this NCAA tournament has not delivered, I would argue that it has delivered more this season than in quite some time. I wanted to see Rick Pitino against John Calipari. We got that. And we got an amazing matchup. I didn't process it until I heard it during the game. Now, we don't know if we'll ever see John Calipari against Rick Pitino again. Not only, with the storied history between those two, the rivalry, the dislike, the whatever you want to call it, the feud, the fact that we got a chance to see John Calipari and Rick Pitino coach and go head-to-head one more time, pretty damn special. I'm hoping there's another showdown at some point, but they're not going to meet up in the regular season. The fact that they were paired together with the chance to run into one another in the NCAA tournament was pretty special, and it panned out, and it played out, and it worked out. I love everything about. Look, this tournament, are the games close? There's a lot of blowouts. I think it's very top-heavy, but I don't think that this is a sign of things to come. I do believe that this is an outlier-type NCAA tournament. I see so many people making a big deal. Making a big deal about the lack of double-digit seeds in the NCAA tournament. In fact, there's only one double-digit seed that has advanced to the Sweet 16, and that happens to be John Calipari in Arkansas. And I see a lot of people, I've heard, I've seen so many pundits out there that the Cinderella runs in the NCAA tournament are officially over. We're never going to see it again. Look at the chalk taking over the tournament. I'm here to tell you right now, you're overreacting. I am nowhere close to overreacting to this. I am nowhere close to panicking. I do not think that we are done with Cinderella runs in college basketball. I just don't. I do not think that we are close to only getting chalk in the NCAA tournament moving forward. Like, you got to let stuff breathe, guys. Like, we got to let this breathe a little bit. I don't even think that we are even in a position to panic. This is one NCAA tournament where we've only had one double-digit seed advance all the way through in over 15 plus years. Let's relax. I still think moving forward, you're going to continue to get your March Madness and your upsets. The madness is lacking this year, but I tell you what it's going to lead to is very entertaining games moving forward. I don't tune in to I tune into the opening weekend to watch the upsets. But let me ask you, we talked about Rick Pitino going up against, obviously, John Calipari. What happens if Omaha upsets Rick Pitino's St. John's team and we get then we get Arkansas against Omaha? Do you think that's going to pull a rating? Do you think that people are going to be excited to watch Omaha against Arkansas? I promise you, they're not. What they wanted was Rick Pitino against John Calipari. What the people wanted was Arkansas against St. John's, and that's what the people wanted, and that's what the people got. So for those of you out there, man, I wish there was more upsets. I'm glad that there hasn't been. I'm glad that we got John Calipari against Rick Pitino, because if you guys got your way, we would have Omaha and Arkansas going head-to-head in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Now, come on. Now what you have is a storyline of John Calipari, who possibly resurrected his career, who not only finds himself in the Sweet 16, but he knocked off Bill Self and Rick Pitino to do it in the process. I think that's a pretty cool storyline. I love that. You don't get that with Omaha going on a run in the NCAA tournament. Historically, the ratings have been through the roof for the opening rounds of the tournament, and the ratings continue to dip and dip and dip as you get closer to what you want the ratings to be the biggest for, which is your national championship and Final Four. What I'm curious about is what a chalk rating tournament would look like, what a chalk tournament would look like ratings-wise. Right now, with everything basically going chalk, with all the favorites winning to this point, lots of blowouts, top-heavy results, completely get it. What I think is going to end up happening is this is going to probably be the most successful NCAA tournament in recent history because the ratings are up 6+% from last season at this time. You know, last year when all was right in the world, when all the upsets were going on, I went and looked at this. 8 double-digit seeds advanced in the NCAA tournament last year. 8 double-digit seeds got at least one win in the NCAA tournament last year. Teams like James Madison, teams like the Oakland Golden Grizzlies, teams like Grand Canyon, teams like Yale. If I was to tell you, and by the way, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. If I was to tell you that, man, I can't wait, like, for instance, college football, Ohio State, Texas kick off the 2025 season. Can't wait. What if I was to tell you, man, I can't wait for college basketball? Did you see that they announced the biggest tip-off game to get you energized for college basketball? Yale and Grand Canyon. I can't wait to watch Yale and Grand Canyon. Nobody says that, which is why nobody believes you when you say you really want to see the upsets in March. I want to see it the first round. I'm done after that. I've been adamant about that for a long time. I love the upsets. I loved watching what Oakland did last year. I would have loved Oakland to pull off one more just to knock off NC State to prevent them from going on their little weird run, going all the way to the Final Four that they did. But outside of that, these are the matchups I want. No one truly sits back and says, man, I can't wait to watch Oakland. I can't wait to watch Grand Canyon. I can't wait to watch Yale, James Madison. I can't wait to watch it. No one says that. No one says that. But I guarantee you, Auburn, Michigan, Bruce Pearl against Dusty May, Sweet 16. I mean, I'm going to be glued to that one. I can't wait for that matchup. How about Ole Miss, Chris Beard, one of the best college coaches and one of the best coaches in college basketball today, going against one of the all-time greats. You got Ole Miss, Michigan State. I want that, not Lipscomb beating Iowa State and then beating Ole Miss to get Michigan State and Lipscomb. No, Ole Miss, Michigan State, Chris Beard, Tom Izzo, Sweet 16. The winner goes on to take on Auburn or Michigan. You could get Michigan against Michigan State. You could get Bruce Pearl against Tom Izzo. You can get Dusty May against Tom Izzo in a Michigan versus Michigan State rivalry game. I love that. You can get Chris Beard and Ole Miss going up against Auburn, an SEC showdown. I'm fine with all of these things. These are great storylines. This is going to be, these ratings for the Sweet 16 and Elite 8, I promise you will be significantly higher than last year because we don't have to watch Grand Canyon. We don't have to watch, obviously, James Madison and Oakland, although Oakland was a fun story. Maybe I'm biased because I obviously know Oakland and their coach and their program very well. But the bottom line is I know nationally fans aren't getting jacked up. Got to stop. I got to call off work Friday because I got to watch James Madison. No. But I guarantee you some of these matchups, they have your attention, and you're going to be really looking forward to some of these matchups. Duke and Arizona, 1-4, right? Like, that's going to be unbelievable. Houston and Purdue. Houston is not a branded program by any means, but my God, if you love just high intensity, defensive intensity, if you just love old school basketball, you're going to want to tune in this matchup. Sampson, Painter, Purdue, Houston, old school approaches. Big Ten, obviously against Houston, who's in the Big 12, who transitioned perfectly into that conference coming out of the American. I'm all about Houston and Purdue in that 1-4 showdown. Can't wait. And then Kentucky against Tennessee. My goodness. What happens if Wofford upsets Tennessee and Utah State upsets UCLA and then beats Tennessee, and you get Kentucky against Utah State? No offense to Utah State, but that's not drawing a rating. Kentucky, Tennessee, sign me up. Sign me up. A hated rivalry matchup like that, sign me up. I'm all for it. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Your thoughts? 937-518-1410. I have officially opened up the phone lines. We'll take your calls on the other side. The madness is missing a little bit, right? There's not a lot of chaos. And people are saying that that's a horrible thing. Ratings say otherwise. And I think what you're going to get, you get ratings that are high for the first and second round of the tournament, and then ratings usually dwindle as the tournament goes on. I think we're going to see the opposite this year. And not really the opposite. I think we're going to see the most balanced tournament ratings-wise in quite some time. The ratings were up in the first and second round from last year, even with all the things you guys have pointed out. No upsets, chalk results, blowout games. Ratings are up from a year ago. And I think that because of the matchups that didn't get blown up due to the chaos and the madness and the upsets, we are getting even better games now in the Sweet 16. We're going to get even better matchups in the Elite Eight. And it's going to set up what could be chalk in the Final Four. It could be some ones. It could be some combination of ones and twos. But I'm not going to sit here and act like I want an NC State double-digit run into the Final Four like we saw last year. I don't like it. I don't want it. I am all about chalk. If we get Duke against Auburn in the national championship, you can't convince me that that is a loss for college basketball. You can't convince me. Just like you're not going to convince me that Ohio State playing Notre Dame in the national championship was a loss for college football, two of the biggest brands in the world. Well, what about the MAC schools? What about the Bowling Green? What about these? What about them? What about them? What about them? I'm not trying to sound too elitist here, but at the end of the day, it's not about what I even want or what you want. It's about what the total viewership audience wants. And the ratings are telling you, as much as you want the upsets, as much as you want the buzzer beaters, as much as you want all those things that you think makes up March Madness, overall, ratings are telling you sometimes it is about the right matchups, and the right matchups have been set up heading in to the Sweet 16. Is this an outlier season? Have we seen the last of the upsets? Have we seen the last of the Cinderella storylines in college basketball? I am curious your guys' thoughts. The phone lines are officially open. 937-518-1410. Are the days of Cinderella storylines in the NCAA tournament a thing of the past? 937-518-1410. Phone lines are open to you. We'll be right back. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner with you here, Dayton's ESPN Radio 1410 Wing AM. Happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. The NCAA tournament, we are first round in, second round in, Sweet 16 coming up, and only one double-digit seed remains in the field for the Sweet 16. And, it's funny because I'm not knocking anyone's opinion on this, because the only opinion that I think I'm starting to knock a little bit is the overreaction opinion. I can agree. If you are one of those that believes that this tournament has been kind of a flop, if you think it's been dull, if you think it's been boring, I will agree with you. There's been no shocking moment. You know what I mean? Obviously, that Colorado State game was good. We saw Clemson make a fun comeback against McNeese, ultimately led to one of the bigger upsets of the weekend, if that's what you're going to call it, in the 12 versus 5. But we haven't had many oh my gosh moments in this tournament. I think that we've seen some oh my gosh matchups, like pretty cool head-to-heads, like the Rick Pitino against John Calipari, with St. John's going up against Arkansas. And even then, like, St. John's is a storied program. Arkansas doesn't make you all warm and fuzzy inside, but the standpoint of having Calipari against Pitino, I think, sold that. So I can agree with you if you guys think that this tournament's been a little dull and boring. The people I'm starting to kind of separate myself from are like the Stephen A. Smiths of the world. Stephen A. Smith was on First Take earlier today, had Seth Greenberg on, and I don't have the soundbite with me. I didn't pull it before the show, but he basically says that we're basically seeing the death of college basketball. The death of college basketball, and a lot of people are agreeing with Stephen A. that you take out the upsets and the Cinderella storylines and the double-digit seed runs, and basically the hope that even the mid-majors, no matter the size of the conference you come from, the hope that you could compete is totally disappearing. I'm not saying that day is not coming. I'm just saying I'm not ready to admit that it's here now. This is a chalk tournament thus far. The majority of the results have been pretty chalk. I agree. It has not been the most exciting tournament. I agree. But to overreact and say that this tournament has just been, that this tournament is now an indictment on what college basketball is moving forward, I cannot disagree more. You can't make that assertion after one tournament. After one tournament, you cannot sit here and say, that's it. Fun's gone. No more Cinderella storylines, no more upsets, no more buzzer beaters. It's just going to be chalk and money the rest of the way. I agree with you about the money. It's all about the money. It's all about the Benjamins. That's all it's about moving forward. But let's not act like, we're talking 12 months ago. We were talking about deep tournament runs and fun upsets by the likes of James Madison, by the likes of the Oakland Golden Grizzlies, Greg Campy and Jack Golke, who we had on the show at this time last year. Right? Like, that's the thing. And it wasn't just James Madison. It wasn't just the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. Yale went on a deep run. Grand Canyon went on a deep run. And that's my point. You're wanting to convince me that the Grand Canyons of the world, Grand Canyon is a great touristy stop. It's not a team that I'm hoping makes it to the Final Four. Like, you're trying to convince me that the lifeline of the NCAA tournament is Grand Canyon and Yale and James Madison and Oakland. I can't get on board with that. I can get on board with, I love the upsets in the first round, the cool, exciting storylines there. But as I stated earlier to open the show, can you imagine if Omaha would have pulled off an upset against St. John's in the first round? Would you have been happy then? Because I wouldn't have. I would not have been excited about Omaha, Arkansas over Calipari, Rick Pitino. I keep going back to that, but I'm trying to get you guys to understand why these upsets aren't always what they're made out to be. You may get a good rating for this upset, but you're sacrificing the rating of this next matchup. All right. And that's why I truly believe when you look at the ratings for the opening rounds of this year's tournament, the same tournament that I agree with you on, by the way, has been dull, has been boring, not a lot of excitement. I agree with you guys there, but the ratings say something else. The ratings are up from a year ago. They're up from a year ago where you had 8 double-digit seeds get at least a win in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Ratings are higher a year later with less of those and more chalk, more boring games, more predictable outcomes. Why are more boring games? Why are more blowouts leading more predictability. Why is that leading to a better rating than a year ago? I don't know. I'm not saying I'm a fan of it, but I can't sit there and say it's a bad thing when the ratings are telling you otherwise. My second point is this. I brought up this point earlier. Omaha, you want those upsets. You get the Omaha upset. That's great. You love the reaction to Omaha knocking off St. John's if it would have happened. And then you sacrifice that one little moment of a feel-good, ha-ha, Rick Pitino at the expense of getting a Rick Pitino against a John Calipari. I'm so glad Omaha knew their role and got their behinds kicked so that we could get St. John's in Arkansas, so we can get Rick Pitino and John Calipari for probably maybe the final time ever. I'm excited with all. I was so glad to get that. But here's where I think this is going to be the most successful tournament in recent history. I think that the ratings proved that not everyone is all about is not only tuning in for the Cinderella upsets. They're tuning in for the matchups. The storylines are going to get the casual fan, but the basketball fans themselves, and there's a lot of them out there, they're not tuning in for the Grand Canyons and the Yales and the James Madisons and the Oaklands of the world. They want Calipari Pitino. They want, obviously, Auburn and Michigan. They want Michigan State and opportunities like that to have Michigan State in the Elite Eight. Like that's what we as basketball fans truly want. If you want to slip in the upsets here and there to kind of, interest the casual fan, fine. Non-basketball fans love when Yale gets the upset over the big blue blood, right? They love when, obviously, you get your James Madison run or your McNeese State run. You love all that stuff. But basketball fans, you may enjoy it for the ha-ha moment. You don't enjoy it after that. No one is circling the calendar saying, man, I can't wait for Duke and Grand Canyon. That doesn't happen. I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. So the question I have is this truly the end of an era? Is this an indictment on college basketball moving forward? Is this going to be what we see every tournament moving forward now? Stephen A. Smith said that college basketball, it's about to be the death of college basketball. No more Cinderella storylines, no more deep tournament runs for double-digit seeds for the underdogs. I could not disagree with him more for the time being. If we get 2 tournaments in a row like this, if we get to 3 or 4 tournaments like this, I can get on board with that. But it's a complete overreaction. We are less than 12 months away. We are less than 12 months removed from a tournament that we saw 8 double-digit seeds get at least 1 win in the NCAA tournament last year. And NIL's been around for a few years now, more than a few. We're a half a decade into this NIL era. We need to stop blaming. Like every time we see something we don't like in college athletics, it's that damn NIL. I'm not a fan of the way it's impacted sports by any means. I think the portal is a bigger problem than NIL, to be honest with you. The portal stinks. I hate the portal more than I hate the NIL. I'm all for players making their money. Go make your money. What I hate is just the constant hopping from one team to the next, to the next, to the next. You could say, well, you have the freedom to do it. They should have the freedom to do it. You may have the freedom to do it. It doesn't mean that we do it. I mean, these guys, when I was in college, a lot of pressure and emphasis was put on us as college students to be cognizant of the jobs that you apply for and the jobs that you accept. And don't just take a job to take a job. What's your big picture motive for taking that job? Because what you don't want is, well, I just need a job, so I'll take the first thing that's offered to me. Cool. And then all of a sudden something's better offered to you, so you quit 2 or 3 months in. And then you really, really like that job, and the experience you get at that job for 6-7 months is great. And then another job comes along, and you're like, well, damn, that one offers me more money. Always follow the money, yes. But now you've worked at 3 jobs in a little over a 2-year window. And now when you go apply for that 4th job, that employer's like, well, I know you're really good at your job. I'm looking at your resume. You're very well skilled. You're probably overqualified in some of these, qualifications here. But I got to tell you, it's a red flag to see that you've worked at 3 different jobs in 2 years. So for people out there that love to do you normal, non-athletic, boring person, loser in college that doesn't bring anything to anyone's lives, you get to hop from college to college anywhere you want. You can do whatever the hell you want, guys. But it still doesn't mean you're being taught good quality life lessons. What is the point of hopping from team to team to team to team every single offseason, every other offseason? You're not learning any life lessons or goals. You act like you're exercising your freedom to go do whatever the hell you want. More power to you. You're making yourself look bad at the end of the day, because all it is teaching you as a human being is I'm going to be here for 2 months. I don't like the way my boss looked at me. I'm out. I'm going to be here for a month. I don't like the way my coworker smells. I'm out. Right? Like it's like you are just teaching these 18 to 22, sometimes 26-year-olds, however long they're in college. You're teaching them that it's okay that every single little tiny situation where you don't get your way, you could pout and act like a jerk and just storm out. It is unbelievably stupid. I hate the portal for everything it's worth. I love the NIL and the opportunities to make money. But don't sit there and use real life people like us non-athletes, and say, well, you could hop from job to job. You can hop from school to school. Yes, we can. But also, if you do it enough, you get labeled with a lot of red flags for, well, you can't hold a job down. I'm looking for someone that we can rely on over a long period of time. You can't do that. So there are ramifications that come with that. So I don't know why I got on a little side tangent. My apologies, but here we are. I don't, to get back on track here, my apologies. I believe that the NCAA tournament is going to be just fine. If we get 2 or 3 years straight of no upsets, no buzzer beaters, tons of blowouts, and a lot of chalk, I do believe you're going to lose a lot of interest in the beginning stages of the tournament. I think you're going to get a lot more people tuning in the later rounds. Historically, ratings for the first 2 rounds are very, very high, and then they dwindle as the tournament progresses. I think now, because you're going to get bigger and better matchups, bigger and better storylines, I think what you're going to end up getting is still the high rating number for the first and second round that normally comes with it, where even the non-basketball fans tune in. Non-basketball fans usually check out after the opening weekend. But now, because the matchups are so good moving forward, I think you're going to get bigger ratings in the middle of the tournament, setting up better Final Fours, bigger matchups, bigger head-to-head storylines, and I think you're going to get a bigger rating at the end. I think overall, this NCAA tournament, for everyone that says how bad it is, I think it's going to be probably one of the more successfully viewed and rated tournaments in recent history. Boring, not as many upsets, not as many buzzer beaters. I'm with you. But overall, the quality of matchups that you're getting, at the end of the day, I think we forget what the whole point of a postseason tournament is to crown a champion, to give the championship to the best and most deserving team. And you can't say that the 16s and 15s, 14s were not given an opportunity. They're in the tournament. You look at Robert Morris. They had Alabama's back against the wall. I thought that was going to be we were going to get that big upset. Nope, couldn't get done. We've seen a lot of, interest. I think it was Alabama State. They had Auburn. Auburn kind of took the foot off the gas. Alabama State, with about 3 minutes to go, cut it to within 2. And I'm like, oh, here we go. 16 versus 1. Is this going to happen? Now Auburn was up 10 at half. They finally flipped that switch, and then they blew them out by 20 plus at the end. It's been March almost madness this year. But, man, the matchups in the Sweet 16 are pretty exciting. All right, what say you? The phone lines are open, 937-518-1410. 937-518-1410. Do you believe that the era of the Cinderella storyline, the Cinderella runs, are a thing of the past? Is the tournament we're watching now what we should expect from college basketball moving forward? 937-518-1410. Let's go to Shaw. Shaw, thanks for holding. You're kicking us off live.
How you doing, Mr. Kinner?
Good. Happy Monday. What you got for us?
Oh, not a whole lot. I agree with you, and I cannot believe I'm saying this. I somewhat agree with Stephen A., only on a different premise. And what I mean by that, I agree this tournament is setting up to be very exciting. I think matchups moving forward are excellent. I think we have a Final Four that could be legendary, quite honestly, if everything plays out the way I hope it does. But kind of mingling the 2 points together with the Stephen A. and yours, where I kind of disagree with you a little bit and kind of agree with him a little bit. I don't think it's so much NIL. I think it's transfer portal. And I believe it's one of the reasons. I think it's maybe for once in their history, NCAA is kind of like foreshadowing. I think it's kind of why they're trying to get in front of the horse, if you will, and expand this tournament, which at first I think everybody obviously was against. But I think it's one of the reasons why they're going back to that is because the way the transfer portal is right now, you got the bigger schools basically collecting up all the talent, especially from the smaller schools. So the smaller schools aren't as talented as what they used to be. And I think moving forward, you will see kind of in your traditional 64 round. I think you're going to start seeing the bigger schools kind of dominate at that point. If they do expand out, I think you will start seeing more upsets earlier on, but it will eventually even out. I think your quote unquote big upsets now moving forward will be from the Sweet 16 round moving forward. Unless there's a drastic change to quote unquote the transfer portal, I kind of do agree that seeing your 16s and your 15s and maybe even your 14s on a consistent basis, tournament to tournament, pulling off those upsets. And I kind of already see your rebuttal, I think, in a little bit because of last year, and we did almost see a couple this year. But I think, like I said, with the transfer portal, the bigger schools have kind of honed in and understood, hey, we need to get veteran guys in here, especially at the guard position. And I think that's why you're seeing less and less of these upsets. But I've been wrong, and I'll raise my hand moving forward. But what do you think about that?
Well, I see where everyone's coming from with that take. We're all just assuming that, okay, the bigger school, that mid-majors have now taken a step back because of the portal, but the portal's been around for, this is your number 5. And I'm not, so here's the deal. This doesn't need to turn into a debate because everything you've said could be right. Everything I've said could be right. I think I need to see more of bad NCAA tournament first weekends before I'm willing to dive into that. Because look, I mean, we never saw a 16 seed knock off a 1 for pretty much the entire existence of the tournament. And we've seen it multiple times now in the last 6 years. So it's like, that's not screaming to me that the gap's getting wider. It just shows that I think it's kind of tightening a bit. People bring up the fact, like I talked to so many mid-major coaches as well. People act like the high majors are the only ones not recruiting high school anymore. I've talked to multiple college coaches who have now, with their limited, again, mid-majors have limited coaching staffs. They've now assigned one of their coaches to keep an eye on the high school field, but everyone else, it's balls to the wall when it comes to the portal. It's all about the portal. Even mid-majors are going portal only for a lot of this stuff. And it's not just the high majors. And I think you're getting mid-majors that are getting a lot of better talent as well. Talent that is not good enough for some of those bigger schools, but looking for an opportunity to get a lot of minutes and some NIL at some of these smaller schools and opportunities. I think it all shakes out and evens out. But Shaw, if I see a year from now, if we're having the same conversation a year from now, I'll start to lean more your way and say, okay, we're starting to see that gap. But this is, to me, it's an outlier tournament for right now. I need to see more tournaments like this before I'm willing to change my mind, especially coming off of a year last year where we had 8 double-digit seeds make tournament runs, and we saw upsets and buzzer beaters just a year ago. I'm not willing to say that it's completely dead now because of one tournament like this for the time being.
I fully understand that point. I do. It's just, I guess, the Stephen A's of the world are kind of putting their foreshadowing hat on and seeing how the high mid majors and even the big schools, they're like, you hit the nail on the head. And it's not just basketball. High school recruiting is definitely going to be changing moving forward because I'm seeing it in multiple sports and reading the same things I think you are. And obviously you talking to the head coaches and coaches, where just youth sports it's going to be interesting moving forward, but that's a different topic for a different day. But just with the transfer portal and trying to get more experience and stuff like that, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm foreshadowing too. It's just I'm kind of assuming that this is just going to continue on this trend. That doesn't necessarily mean that the tournament's going to be bad because, like you said, I think just our minds will have to shift to the second weekend moving on, because I think now moving forward, especially this season, you're going to see the buzzer beaters this weekend. You're going to see just the unbelievable matchups, and you're going to see great coaching and stuff like that moving forward. And then you can see some of these upsets. I can see Arizona beating Duke. I can see Auburn. I don't see Michigan beating Auburn, but you get my point. It's just you can see these 4 seeds being way more competitive than what they used to be. That's all I got. And very excited baseball week, and we'll talk later. Peace.
Appreciate you, man. 518-1410, 937-518-1410. That's the number to call. and jump in on the conversation. I want to give a shout out to Tim Street and the OHSAA, Ohio High School Athletic Association, for allowing me to be a part of the boys and girls state basketball tournament at UD Arena over the last couple of weeks. So much was made about the 7 divisions expansion from 4 to 7 divisions this past year. And I was not a fan of the expansion for what it meant to taking experiences away from high school athletes who punched their ticket to the semifinals and stuff. But getting to see the championship matchups and to see the attendance and to see everything that transpired over the weekend, it was a big win for the OHSA, in my opinion. I'm curious your guys' thoughts. This does tie into our March Madness conversation. There was a lot of big-time talent at UD Arena over the weekend. Where are those kids going to play? I noticed a little trend. Maybe it's just a one-off again. But I was so used to watching some of the bigger divisions have so many guys that are going to high major programs. I was told by multiple people who are locked in on the high school basketball scene that said that there are 2 or 3 guys going to MAC schools that would normally be going to high major schools, but certain high major schools aren't even paying attention to the high school ranks at this very moment. We'll talk about that and more when we come back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. We'll be right back. All right, and we welcome you back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits, of course. Appreciate Frickers over in Centerville. Kev Nash and I were live last Thursday for the first round of the NCAA tournament, of course. And we're going to be live at a different Frickers location every month. And we'll have more information on when we're going to be taking the show out again. It will be obviously in the month of April. It'll be closer to the draft. We're excited about that. So we'll have more information coming up for you here around the corner. Stop on out at one of your local neighborhood Frickers for their Frickin' Lunch combos for $10.99. The Frickin' Lunch combo features many options such as the Frickin' Chicken Chunks, cheeseburgers, charbroiled chicken wrap, and the Frickin' Chicken Wrap. You also get a side and a drink, all for $10.99. The Frickin' Lunch combo available Monday through Friday between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. That deal, by the way, the Frickin' Lunch combo for $10.99 is that deal is for carry-in or dine-in. So keep that in mind during the work week when you're looking to get a quick lunch and get a nice deal on a good meal. Check out Frickers for the Frickin' Lunch combo, $10.99. Check out your local neighborhood Frickers. Okay, we welcome you back. We got a lot more college basketball to get into. I know opening day is this week. We're going to turn our attention towards opening day here very, very soon. I promise you that much. I'm excited about opening day. Look, there's a lot of negativity around the Reds right now because, well, the IL started to pile up a little bit, the IL list for the Reds. I mean, you look at Tyler Stevenson and Spencer Steer going to start the season on the IL. That's not good. Alexis Diaz is the latest Cincinnati Red. It was announced yesterday. Gordon Whitmire with the Inquirer announced and reported that the Reds were going to be putting Alexis Diaz on the IL to start the season. And then, of course, we know with the rotation with the Reds right now, that we're not going to see Andrew Abbott in the rotation as he'll start the season on the IL as well. We know Hunter Green's the opening day starter, Nick Lodolo second in the rotation, along with Nick Martinez at third, and then, of course, who they acquired via trade in the Jonathan India move, going to get a Brady Singer, and then Carson Spires is going to be the number 5 pitcher in the rotation for the time being. Looking forward to opening day coming up on Thursday, no doubt about it. But, as we sit here right now, as we get closer to baseball, a lot of college basketball stuff to dive into. The big thing, we're going to talk about the Flyers in a moment. I saw someone bring up the Flyers. Let me go back to this real quick and find it. I was talking about the mid-majors, how this is a season where we've only seen one double-digit seed make a run into the Sweet 16, and I almost don't want to give it credit for being a double-digit seed because when I hear double-digit seed, I'm thinking of my mid-major programs. You know what I mean? Like I'm not Arkansas with John Calipari and one of the biggest NIL collectives in the country. That, to me, despite the success knocking off Bill Self and Rick Pitino in the NCAA tournament to get to the Sweet 16, although that is successful, being an 11 seed, John Calipari in Arkansas, with all the resources and the money and the talent that he brought into Arkansas, underachieved in the regular season, achieving the proper amount of success that was the anticipation for a Calipari-led team when he took the Arkansas job. But that's besides the point. This has not been the year for the mid-major. It has not been the year for the upsets, buzzer beaters, all that fun stuff that usually comes with March. This is March. Where's the madness? Not a whole lot of madness here this month either way. So I brought that up, and Lamar Shelley chimes in. By the way, we're live on the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page. If you head to the Justin Kinner Show Facebook page, that's where you could watch the show, listen to the show, leave your comments in the comment section. I'll be able to interact with you that way. Lamar Shelley says, so what they're telling you is that UD and Coach Grant are fine. Mid-majors are just that. We don't have to talk about them as failures, but we can enjoy what they mean locally. My Duke Blue Devils cut down the nets, but it's a tough field out there. First of all, I'm not giving Dayton a pass. And any one of you guys out there that wants to give Dayton a pass, you're part of the problem as well. Anthony Grant has paid millions of dollars to compete and win the A-10 and get to the NCAA tournament, and yet he has paid millions of dollars to constantly come up short and constantly have excuses for why they come up short. I didn't want to get into the anti-Anthony Grant thing today, but we're about to watch a program in Xavier lose their coach in Sean Miller, who takes the Texas job. And I guarantee you, whoever comes in and takes Xavier, they're going to keep on trucking and keep on being a good program because they're a good program. Dayton's program has regressed because of Anthony Grant, because they are more stubborn about, well, we want a Dayton guy. We want a guy that's not going to use us to leapfrog to another job, because the ego of Dayton Flyers is that we're not a stepping stone school. You are. If you're not a top 10, top 20 job in the country, you are a stepping stone program. I saw a lot of Xavier fans upset with Sean Miller today. Sean Miller opts after, by the way, I was at UD Arena last week for the first four, and I watched Xavier punch out Texas. They came back from double digits. They won in the first four. And they, obviously get knocked out in, the NCAA tournament in the first round. Sean Miller, the same team that he eliminated in the first four, he takes that job. And I was surprised. I didn't mean to get to this topic now, but why not? I was surprised at the amount of animosity and hate thrown towards Sean Miller's way by a lot of Xavier fans. And I don't understand why, because I don't understand. If you truly believe that Sean Miller was coming back to take the Xavier job for the second time, if you thought that he was coming back and was going to stay, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this is ridiculous. So I saw this earlier. Let me go back to make sure it's on the front of my page here so I could get this article read to you real quick. There it is. Cincinnati Enquirer. This is the headline. Xavier gave Sean Miller a second chance. He reminded everyone loyalty means nothing in college sports with his departure to Texas. What? I swear, it's like when people want to hate, it's like you truly lose all comprehension skills of just how college athletics and life works. Did you truly believe this idea that Xavier gave Sean Miller something that no other program was going to give him? Are you kidding me? Look at Rick Pitino. Look at what he did and the jobs that he took and the path that he took to get to St. John's, and is now one of the best feel-good stories in college basketball. Can you imagine if the schools that gave him a shot, can you imagine if when he took the St. John's job, if some dweeb writer in the Iona Enquirer, or wherever the hell Iona is, if Iona's little beat writers came out and said, oh my goodness, can you believe it? Rick Pitino just proved why loyalty is just a thing in the past. I can't believe Iona gives Rick Pitino a shot, and this is what he does. No, because Iona has enough self-awareness to truly comprehend who they are as a program. They knew that they were going to give Rick Pitino a shot, and knew that if the gamble that they took, giving him the job, worked out and they won games and got to the tournament, they knew it was not going to be a marriage that lasted very long. They knew their role, okay? And they capitalized on it because they've elevated the name and the value of that program by marrying Rick Pitino for a very short amount of time. Rick Pitino, thanks Iona for everything, goes on to St. John's, and the rest is history. Look at the success he's having there. Self-awareness is key. When Dayton had Archie Miller years ago, people were so pissed that Archie Miller left after that class with Scoochie Smith and Kendall Pollard and Kyle Davis and those guys. That class that I know is a transfer, but you go get Charles Cook and guys like that. Like, that was an amazing team. They get upset by Wichita, not really even upset, but it was a good matchup. Wichita State and Dayton, that was Archie's final year. Archie, Scoochie, those guys, they walk off the floor for the final time, and it was the final time. Archie ends up taking the Indiana job, and Flyer fans lost their mind. Wow, I can't believe look at everything. He wants to make the tournament. He wants to get paid. He's proven he could do that here. He's proven he could win at Dayton. He's proven that he can make the NCAA tournament at Dayton. He's proven that he can be paid a lot of money. Neil Sullivan, the athletic director, came out and said in negotiations with Archie Miller at that time, they were willing to make him a top 10 compensated coach in college basketball. I remember that quote specifically. They were willing to make him a top 10 paid coach, compensated coach in college basketball. He declined, and he took the Indiana job. And I said, if that right there is not a sign of being a stepping stone program, then I don't know what is. But the problem is that the egos of programs, a lot of times, they hear the phrase stepping stone program and they get their ego hurt. They get their feelings hurt. And instead of just being self-aware and knowing who you are, when you don't know who you are as a program, that's when you get 8 years of mediocrity and underachievement like what the Flyers have got post Archie Miller. Because what they wanted was Dayton, a Dayton guy. They wanted a guy that was going to come in, former Flyer that was going to take the Flyer job and not be looking at other jobs. I know he was linked to the Miami job for a little bit, to the Hurricanes, right? Like anytime a big job opens up, Anthony Grant, former National Coach of the Year, maybe he's a candidate. He's not. He's not. And it's because they don't want him. And he's comfortable where he's at. Because although the expectation is, or what you guys think it is, of he needs to be an NCAA tournament team or bust, he's proven, and the program has proven, it's not about the NCAA tournament. They are content with underachieving, not winning the A10, not making the NCAA tournament on a consistent basis, because you know what? They have a coach that's a good person, and he's loyal. What has that gotten you? Give me Sean Miller any day of the week. Give me Sean Miller any day of the week. Archie Miller left Dayton because Dayton is a springboard job. It's probably the best of all the springboard jobs. When you think of the fan base, when you think of the resources and the Dayton Six, the collective, and the NBA arena, and you think of all that fun stuff, it's the best of the springboard jobs, but it's a springboard job. That's what it is, and that's okay. But trying to find somebody that won't use it as that is going to put you in a position where you're constantly underachieving, and that's what Dayton's doing. Xavier, anyone that's truly mad that Sean Miller left to take the Texas job, I don't think you truly understand basketball at this point, college basketball especially. Sean Miller is going to kill it at Texas. Sean Miller did a great job in his return to Xavier. No deep tournament runs, I get that. They did get the cool win against Texas in the first four last week, and arguably probably the best game of the tournament. I mean, that kind of set the tone for what we thought was going to be a great March and ended up just kind of being a dud. I mean, the first four has been the best part of the tournament this year. I don't think there's any doubt about it. When you think about the opening night with the Christian Laettner full court baseball pass to center court, the turn and shoot to win. You know what I mean? Like between that game on opening night and then the come from behind win by Xavier with the Xavier faithful filling up UD Arena. It was just a great environment. Like the first four has been the best part about the tournament up until this point, in my opinion. But I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. But being self-aware is very important. And I got a lot of heat on social media today from people that were mad at my take. I mean, this guy right here, I guess, his name's Jolly on Twitter. I don't really know what to make of it, but he says, always count on you for bad takes, because I put out on X that anybody that is questioning loyalty in this case, talking about Xavier and Sean Miller, clearly doesn't understand how college athletics works anymore. Good for Sean Miller. If you truly thought that when Sean Miller came back to Xavier that it was going to be like this long-term relationship, you're delusional. But in his press conference, he said he had unfinished business here and that he was here to get the job done. Yeah, I bet when you go to the strip club, you truly think that they like you too. Like, that's not how this works. Coaches are going to say whatever they need to say to get the fan base to buy in, to get the players to buy in, to get the donors to buy in, to get the NIL collectives to buy in. That's all this. It's all coach speak. And he means it. He wants to win. Everyone wants to win. And he's going to go to Texas and he's going to say the same thing there. Simple as that. But Texas is going to give him something that Xavier can't. Way more money, way better NIL collectives, money and resources, better facilities, better conference, better everything. Xavier, don't be mad at this situation. You're not in a bad spot. Xavier is a cool job. It is. And I think the fact that, you're hearing that, Chris Mack is back to being considered for that job again. I would look at Kelsey over there with what he's doing with Miami of Ohio. I love what Akron's doing with their coach and Coach Gross. Like, there's a lot of coaches that I think would just do wonders at Xavier. Xavier's going to be fine. Xavier, I think some of the fan base is delusional. I think Xavier is self-aware. Xavier went right to work, went right back. That's why Chris Mack's name got thrown out right away. I think Xavier is going to be just fine. Xavier's self-aware. Dayton's not, and that's why they get blown out at Chattanooga in the NIT. Because they would rather have a coach that you could just say, hey, he's a good guy, he's nice, he has a nice smile, he shakes hands, says yes, sir, no, sir. I mean, he's just a good quality stand-up guy. National Coach of the Year because he was fortunate to have National Player of the Year and Obi Toppin on his roster for 1 year. Take him off, and what do you got? 19, 20 wins a year. Third, fourth place finishes in the A10. No, constantly missing out on at-large bids in the NCAA tournament. And then, when he gets to the NIT, loses against teams out of the SoCon, teams he has no business losing to. So Lamar, you started this. My apologies. You got me off on a rant, but that's where we're at right now for for a moment. But either way, I'm curious people's thoughts. Let's see. We're out of time. So for the first hour, at least, we head into the next hour of the show. 937-518-1410. I see Mikey. Mikey's on hold. We're going to get to him coming back. But man, oh man, the Sean Miller news from over the weekend. Xavier looking for a new head coach. I can't believe people are mad at Sean Miller for leaving. Just like I was shocked when people were mad at Archie for leaving Dayton. And I do believe there's ways to be. I'm mad Archie's leaving because now I'm worried we're going to stink. Worry that perspective, cool. But mad at Archie and saying that he's not loyal. No one's loyal to Dayton. And the ones that are loyal to Dayton, they're sticking around at Dayton because no one else is trying to take them away. It's as simple as that. I talked to an athletic director one time that said he used to get really bothered by teams coming and poaching his coaches. And he said he learned very quickly how flattering that is. He says, because if you have a coach that nobody is trying to poach from you, you probably don't have a good coach. If you have players that nobody is trying to take away from you, you probably don't have good players. So if you have really good players that other teams are trying to poach, that's a good thing. If you have a young coach or a coach at a mid-major program that bigger programs are trying to pluck away from you, that's a good thing. And I've always remembered that conversation with that respective athletic director at the time, because he's right. If you have getting mad because other teams are trying to take your coach and your players, that means you have something that they want, something that they don't have. Be proud of that. No one's trying to come get Anthony Grant from the Flyers. A lot of teams were trying to get Sean Miller from Xavier. Xavier's going to be fine. Dayton needs to look at themselves in the mirror and figure out who they want to be as a program, because I highly doubt second-round blowout exits at Chattanooga in the NIT. That's not what you're spending millions on your head coach for year in and year out. Hour 2 coming up next. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers.
The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
playoffs was true.
Not bad. Come on, Kenner. You can do better than that.
To be fair, of all the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, Joe Burrow is the least accomplished.
Getting better.
1,000,000%. I 1,000,000% believe that the Dayton Flyers are afraid of the Wright State Raiders. That's why they come up with every excuse in the book not to play them.
There it is. The hottest take of them all. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, live on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, and we are back. The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers here on a Monday. A lot of college basketball talk today coming out of the weekend. Kind of a dud NCAA tournament, at least in the first and second rounds. I thought the first four delivered. You think of that Xavier comeback win over Texas. You think that Alabama State. You think that there's really good games in the first four and the 16th seed matchups. I mean, I thought the first four, not just saying it because it's here in our city, but at the end of the day, I thought that was the best part of the tournament thus far. I thought that's provided the most drama, the most excitement. And yeah, I feel like the way the first four went, we felt like we were in store for something special. And it's just been a lot of duds. And ironically enough, and we talked about this in the opening hour, the ratings, well, I agree with everyone out there that says it's been a dud. The games have not been exciting, a lot of blowouts, no double-digit, Cinderella storylines, throughout the tournament. Ratings are very high for this. Ratings are actually higher than last year. People keep saying, well, the NCAA tournament, it's all about the Cinderella teams. It's all about the upsets. It's all about the madness, March Madness. Well, it's been a lot of non-madness over the last week in the tournament, and the ratings are higher than last year when there was all this madness. There was 8 double-digit seeds that made a run into the NCAA tournament, 8 double-digit seeds that got at least a victory in the tournament. You think of the run that Oakland went on. James Madison got a big win. Grand Canyon got a win. Like, there was a lot of no-name universities that got wins that, you know what I mean? Like that created that madness. But somehow in a season where I agree with those who say it's been a dull tournament, the ratings are not matching that dull perception that we're getting from this tournament at this point. And what I think is going to what's going to happen, and sorry for being repetitive from the first hour, but what I think is going to end up happening is you're going to get, like, not a lot of times, you're always going to get a high rating for the opening round. And that even happened this season with dull games, big blowouts, no Cinderella storylines, etc. But now what ends up happening is instead of the tournament ratings dipping off as bad as what they normally do at this time, I think college basketball is fortunate. I think that because they got such a high rating with no excitement in the first and second round, what it has done is it has set up beyond exciting matchups in the Sweet 16 and is possibly previewing and setting up outstanding Elite Eight games to set up the Final Four. Usually you get the big ratings early on because of the drama and the excitement and the buzzer beaters and the upsets. But then what ends up happening is, man, I can't believe that Oakland beat Kentucky. Oh, now we got to watch Oakland 15 seed take on what was it? NC State. Now we got to watch 2 double-digit seed teams play. Yeah, not as much interest there. And then, NC State beats Oakland. But if NC State would have played Kentucky, Kentucky probably wins, and then Kentucky gets to the Sweet 16, and then it's a much better vibe and feel and better ratings. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to convince me that NC State was a better ratings play in the Sweet 16 than had John Calipari and Kentucky won last year. So I do believe that the strength of the tournament is also the weakness. The strength of the tournament is the upsets and the Cinderella storylines, but at the same time, the excitement is witnessing it happen, but it stops at witnessing it happen. It doesn't carry over into the next game. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't. But I do believe there will be a carryover now into the next round of the NCAA tournament in the Sweet 16, because now look at all these matchups we're getting. We're getting 1 versus 5, Auburn versus Michigan. Dusty May, his first year with Michigan, completely turns the program around. Not only has him back in the NCAA tournament, not only has the season turned around, above 500, but they won the Big Ten tournament. They won 2 NCAA tournament games. They're in the Sweet 16, and now they find themselves in a 1 versus 5, Auburn-Michigan matchup. And guess what? The winner will go on to face the winner of Michigan State and Ole Miss. And you have Chris Beard, one of the best coaches in college basketball today, going up against 2-seed Michigan State. There's a very good chance we're either going to get Bruce Pearl against Tom Izzo, or Bruce Pearl against Chris Beard, or Dusty May and Michigan going up against rival Michigan State. Like, These matchups are going to lead to bigger ratings because we avoided the chaos in the first 2 rounds. Now we don't have to try and pretend that we're big Omaha fans or big McNeese State fans or anything like that. Now we know we're getting good quality basketball in Michigan and Auburn. Now we know we're going to get a hell of a matchup in Ole Miss against Michigan State. Right? Like, I'm excited for these matchups. Texas Tech and Arkansas. Arkansas, the only double-digit seed remaining in the tournament. But you're going to get Tennessee and Kentucky. Like, everyone out there is like, oh, man, the tournament is just horrible. This is one of the worst tournaments ever. Ratings disagree with you. Ratings are actually going to be better in the middle of the tournament now, which means you're going to get a strong start, you're going to get a strong middle, and it's probably going to set up one hell of a Final Four, and you're going to get a strong finish. I'm going to make an argument that this has actually been one of the more successful NCAA tournament starts in quite some time. You fall for the buzzer beaters, you fall for the upsets, but when you get those, you kill the middle of the tournament. And I think what we're about to see is one of the most complete tournaments from beginning to end in quite some time. And, I saw someone messaging a little bit ago. I have no clue how you could say that, how, now there's no excitement carried over into the Sweet 16. I completely disagree. Here's the deal. I used this example ad nauseum in the first hour. We got to see John Calipari against Rick Pitino. We got to see Arkansas and St. John's go head-to-head. St. John's, though, so when we saw Arkansas knock off Kansas, when we saw Calipari and Arkansas knock off Bill Self in Kansas, we're like, oh, man, all St. John's has to do is take care of business against Omaha, and we get Calipari and Rick Pitino. How about that? But what if you would have got what you would normally want out of March, and that's those crazy upsets? Were you really wanting Omaha to beat Rick Pitino and St. John's? What happens if Omaha? So then what ends up happening is Omaha beats St. John's, and then you get Omaha and Arkansas. And then you get whoever the hell Omaha's coach is going up against John Calipari, and I don't really care about that matchup, so I'm going to tune out. I don't really care about it. And I'm going to let you know a secret about yourself that you probably didn't know, even though you knew it, but you don't want to tell people. I'm going to tell everyone for you. You wouldn't have cared about it either. You would not have given 2 blanks about Arkansas and Omaha, but you cared a lot about Arkansas and St. John's, Rick Pitino and Calipari, because storylines matter, matchups matter, and as fun of a talking point of Omaha possibly beating St. John's would have been, it would have sacrificed a back-end rating for a, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I just saw moment. And I don't think those, oh my God, I can't believe what I just saw moments are worth cutting the head off the snake for the rest of the tournament. Not a fan of it. I'm a fan of this tournament. I think this tournament's been great. We'll see what ends up happening when it's all said and done. Mr. Belmer, how are you, sir? Mr. Belmer said, Jim Belmer says, maybe strong ratings, but it will not be motivated to travel to Pittsburgh and pay $1,200 for seats to watch Oakland play a great game only to lose. That, my friend, was a great game. Oh, no, sir, I'm with you. And Jim, I think we talked about that Oakland team. I was locked in. I'm not disrespecting Oakland. I'm talking about Oakland in a realistic capacity, though. Like, you have a connection there. I have a connection to the league and to Greg Campy and to Jack Golke in Oakland last year. So, I was on the edge of my seat. Don't get me wrong. I love that. But I know so many people around here that didn't know anything about Greg Campy, nothing about Oakland. All right, they looked at Jack Golke and said, oh, that's cool, that's great, but man, I would much rather be watching Kentucky deeper into the tournament. And so, Jim, you're not wrong, because me and you are on the same page. I'm just talking in terms of how this tournament is viewed from the majority standpoint, I guess is how I'm viewing it. But Mr. B, I hope you're doing well, sir. Let's see. David Shaw brings up Ohio State. Ohio State should have made a run at Sean Miller. Let's go back to that, too. Ohio State, actually, no, we're going to get to the Ohio State stuff in a moment, because yes, you're right. They should have made a run at Sean Miller, but there was a particular coach that's doing really big things right now that was also in line to get that Ohio State job. And Ohio State said, no, thanks. And I'm not talking about Dusty May. This coach might be the biggest storyline in college basketball right now with what's transpired over the last couple of weeks. And Ohio State had a chance to get him, and they said no. So we'll get to that coming up here shortly. But either way, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I'm excited to get to the Sweet 16 matchups this coming up Thursday and Friday and into the weekend with the Elite Eight. And college basketball is winding down. I know college basketball. Look, we knew in the state of Ohio, we knew that Xavier got the at-large bid into the first four, and we knew that Akron got the auto bid by winning the MAC. Akron, I thought Akron can go on more of a run, but they got punched in the mouth pretty early, knocked out in the first round. And then Xavier, they get the big win for Ohio, obviously, and get the first four win over Texas, but then they get knocked out in the first round. No Ohio teams left. So there's no Ohio representation left. And then what teams were left? Obviously, you had Dayton and the NIT. They get blown out at Chattanooga over the weekend. And people think I enjoy just taking shots at Dayton. It's a tough spot for Dayton to be in because I was going to rip them if they opted out of the NIT. But, there's a lot of teams that opt into the NIT, and if you win a game or two, all right, that's a good way to close out the season. The problem for a program like Dayton is if you opt into the NIT, you need to win it all, right? With all the money and resources you have, with how much you pay your head coach, with the players on the roster, the fact that you went 2-2 against top 10 teams in the country back in November, December, Dayton, it was a lose-lose for them because the only way they could have come out on top is by actually winning the NIT. Because if you look at that NIT field, there's not a single team in the NIT field that Dayton could have lost to, and you've been like, yeah, but that's a buzzsaw they ran into. Dayton's supposed to be the buzzsaw as the 1 seed when you're the Dayton Flyers. They got beat with Deron Holmes last year. Shout out to Deron, by the way. When they got beat by Arizona in the NCAA tournament, people were bummed, but it was, well, that's Arizona. You ran into a buzzsaw in Arizona last year. That type of team doesn't exist in the NIT. You're supposed to be that buzzsaw in the NIT. So unless you win it all, you're going to have an unceremonious exit, and the vibes of the season are just, you're going to leave your fan base with a sour taste in their mouth, and that's exactly what happened. And then if you opt out of the NIT, you're going to have people like me who are going to pounce on Dayton because at the end of the day, opting out, I saw so many Flyer fans say, I'm so mad that they opted into the tournament. I'm here to tell you, opting out is soft. Opting out of the NIT is soft if you're the Dayton Flyers. In fact, Dayton is not a good enough program to opt out of the NIT. They're just not. You can't make the NCAA tournament once in 8 years, 2 times in 8 years if I'm being generous. It's kind of hard to give you credit for making a tournament that never happened. But here we are. They would have been in it. But 2 tournament appearances in 8 years, and you want me to say that, yeah, they should have opted out because they're above the NIT, the tournament that they've actually qualified more than 50% of the time that Anthony Grant's been at Dayton than the actual NCAA tournament, and you're trying to convince me that your program's too good for that? Can't get on board with that. Totally disagree with that. But the NIT was a tough spot for the Flyers to be in because, like I said, if you lose, there's not a team in that field that you can lose to and it be okay based on the critics. And if you win, you better win the whole thing. You're supposed to, right? That's just kind of the reality of it in that particular situation. But I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Let's talk Ohio State college basketball on the other side briefly. You look at the success that Michigan is having in the NCAA tournament right now. All right, you look at the success that quite a few teams with new head coaches this year are having. It is interesting how much worse it makes Ohio State's season look. I'm an Ohio State basketball fan. I'm a Jake Diebler fan. But man, oh man, the things that are coming out about Ohio State's coaching search last year, it went from sounding bad last year at the time to me maybe feeling better about it if Jake Diebler worked out. But I'm not saying Jake Diebler hasn't worked out, but up until this point, there are a lot of other coaches who took over programs in very similar situations or worse and are sitting pretty heading in to the Sweet 16. There is one big name in college basketball that wanted the Ohio State job. And they turned him down. Big mistake by the Buckeyes. I'll tell you who that coach is when we come back.
True Green. Get a golf course quality lawn for less than you think. Sign up at truegreen.com.
The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, and we welcome you back. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. I'm Justin Kinner. Happy Monday. Hope you guys all had a great weekend. Look, my favorite sport is basketball. It's not even close. I love football, love the Reds, love baseball, that fun stuff. But, man, I grew up the biggest basketball fan. And, you know, living in Dayton for 10-plus years the way I have, like, there is no better city to live in if you are a fan of basketball in any capacity. Because I tell you what, like, thought about it. I mean, between – obviously, you know, working and covering and calling the games for Wright State and living in the city with the Dayton Flyers, although you guys think I just can't stand their guts. I mean, I could acknowledge just how fun of a story the Dayton Flyers are. And if you're a fan of college basketball, they're definitely something you follow, and they're definitely something I follow as well. The fact that Ohio State, Xavier, Cincinnati, all within close proximity here from a college basketball perspective. The first four tips off here in Dayton, you know, and I've spent the last couple weekends, you know, working with the OHSAA for the boys and girls state basketball tournament, called some of the girls games last weekend, and then worked with George Howard with all of our pregame and halftime coverage throughout all 7 state championships over the weekend. And this is just such a great city to live in to be a basketball fan, man. So walked out of UD Arena the other night after the boys state tournament wrapped up, and I'm like, well, I mean, obviously the NCAA tournament's still ongoing. But that pretty much does it for basketball season. You know, there's the end of the season storylines. We'll keep an eye on the NCAA tournament, of course, but from a local perspective, that's about it. And it's all about the transfer portal now. And it's all about the what decisions you've made in the past, whether they were right or wrong when it comes to coaching hirings, when it comes to, you know, portal entries and roster construction and all that. And, you know, and we'll get into more of that stuff here in just a second. But man, oh man, love living in this city as a basketball fan. No better city out there for that. But, you know, I'm at the state tournament, and we've talked so much right now about, you know, what we're witnessing in the NCAA tournament. Is that going to be a pattern moving forward where we see just chalk results, blowout, you know, losses in the first couple of rounds, top heavy, you know, seeded teams? And I'm not willing to go there and say that college basketball is dying and that we're about to enter an era where we're going to miss out on those blowouts and everything. And there's this perception out there that because of the portal, all the best players in the country are just going to the bigger schools. And that could not be further from the truth, guys. It just couldn't. Like, I'm just not willing to go there yet and say that college basketball is ruined by the portal and that the NCAA tournament is completely gone and ruined because of the portal. It's interesting watching this because everyone just assumes, okay, if you're a mid-major basketball player and you're really good, you're going to be poached by a bigger school. Absolutely. But then there are really good high-major basketball players that just can't seem to find their groove, can't seem to find their footing, and then they're looking for an opportunity where they can go and get their NIL dollars, all while being the face of a program and getting a ton of minutes and getting an opportunity to play a lot, put up big numbers, and kind of go from there. We've seen it. Everyone acts like it's just a one-way, like it's a single-lane highway when it comes to the portal. It's not. And I understand people's perception that, man, that this tournament is a result of all the good players in the world just going to the bigger schools. I don't think that's the case. I do believe that there is a lot of that happening, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's happening at the levels or to the level in which it is totally just demolishing mid-majors. I just don't. The portal's been around for a few years now. Everyone's like, well, look at, there's no upsets this year. All the good players are up top. You're going to erase all recent history for the most recent tournament. As I've said, if we get to 2 or 3 straight tournaments where this is the result, I'll start to lean your guys' way. I'm not willing to do that yet. We're coming off of a tournament where we're coming off of last year's tournament where 8 double-digit seeds made a run in the tournament. 8 double-digit seeds got at least one win in the tournament last year. Teams like Grand Canyon, teams like the Oakland Golden Grizzlies, teams like Yale, teams like James Madison. That was a calendar year ago, 12 months. It's not like 2024-25 is when all the good players decided, yep, chuck the deuces, I'm out of here. No, that's not how it works. It's not how it works, and it's not how it's working, at least yet. Maybe a year from now, if a year from now at this time, and I have this mic in front of me and we're talking about the upcoming Sweet 16 and it's another first and second round results of chalk, you win. You're not winning right now, though. I can't get on board with that. I'm not. I can't say that that's going to be the case. I've seen so many examples of mid-majors who have been elevated by high major players transferring their way. Okay. And I think that that's helped elevate it. You're getting experienced, well-coached players from high major programs that go to mid-major programs and help elevate their program. I just don't think that what we're seeing this season is an indictment on that. The portal's a problem. The wild, wild west of the handlings of NIL is a problem. I don't think that our problem yet is the demise of the NCAA tournament shock and awe moments due to those. I don't think we're there yet. I just don't. Some of the changes, though, that is happening in college sports did catch my attention over the weekend, as I mentioned, working the tournament at UD Arena. A lot of great basketball, by the way. A lot of great basketball. But the thing that caught my attention the most, Olentangy Orange out of Columbus and Reynoldsburg was the Division I final. And more times than not, you're watching the D1 final, and you're going to catch a player or two that's going to play at a high major program. Devin Royal from Pick Central, seeing him go, obviously played Ohio State, right? You look at Cups, obviously, playing in the D1 final years ago. Every time you watch the D1, there's always some players that are going on to play at a high major program. This year, the best players on these D1 schools were all going to the MAC. Now, before you think that I'm taking a shot at the MAC, I'm here to tell you, I talked to multiple coaches over the weekend at the state tournament that said that it is very, very important that current high school coaches start educating their best players on these mid-major programs, because high major teams are not recruiting you anymore. Rick Pitino came out I think a week, 2 weeks ago, and said that they are no longer recruiting the high school ranks. That is arguably the best coach, top 3 coach in the history of college basketball, coming out and saying we are no longer wasting money and resources out on the high school recruiting trail. And that is not an indictment on the talent at the high school level. It is just simply that coaches have to win, and they have to win now. So bringing in a freshman, bringing in a project, redshirting them and being patient and hoping that they develop along, they don't got time for that. Jobs are on the line. Money's on the line. All right. Portal, everything. They got to go get players that are going to come in and they're going to make an impact and they're going to win right now. These teams, these high major programs, and even coaches I've talked to at the mid-major level, they are turning their attention towards the transfer portal. That's how these programs are planning on building their roster. Look what Anthony Grant and the Dayton Flyers are about to do. They are not going to repatch that roster together. They're losing a ton of talent. Malachi Smith, for whatever reason, quit on the Flyers and entered the transfer portal. He's leaving. They're going to replace him, not with a high school player, with a transfer portal player. You look at Zed Key and these other guys that are graduating and leaving. They're not going to replace them with high school players. They're going to replace them with the transfer portal, because Anthony Grant can't afford to bring in a youthful roster next year and hope to get to the NCAA tournament with freshmen and sophomores. He has to go get experienced players. That's what's going to happen. Wright State just lost 6-7 players to the portal. Brandon Knoll, Horizon League preseason player of the year. I think if Wright State was better, would have had a good shot at winning player of the year. He up and left and entered the portal. They've had 6-7 players all up and leave and enter the portal. The majority of them starters. They are not going to start freshmen and sophomores next year. That coaching staff for Wright State, they're going to go get experienced players out of the portal to put them in position to win next season. That's how you have to do it. I'm not saying they're recruiting high school, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, like, the portal is where these teams are existing. I saw less college coaches at the state tournament this year than I can remember in quite some time. And it's not because these players weren't good enough. I was told by multiple people that there were players on Olentangy Orange and Reynoldsburg that are high major caliber players, but they are going to MAC schools because there were limited offers. And this is where I think that mid-majors are going to continue to keep that talent gap there, because mid-majors are going to start getting those high-end major talents coming out of high school that the high major programs used to get. It might turn into a developmental thing where now the Miami of Ohio's and the Daytons and the Wright States of the world are developing these talents. And then when the time comes to go to bigger schools, I mean, you look what Kobe Bryant did Went to Dayton, had fun for a few years, even got a tournament win last year. But it was time to go to the big leagues, and he ended up going to Kentucky. And now look, he's in the Sweet 16. He's having his cake and eating it too. That's what's happening in these particular situations. And it's up to these coaches that, okay, if you're going to recruit these top talents coming out of high school, you have a 2-year window to win with them before their talent takes over and takes them to higher major programs. But that was a very interesting takeaway I had from the state tournament at UD Arena. Fun weekend of basketball, no doubt about it. While we're on that, and again, I'm Justin Kinner. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers. While we're on that, I don't know. I still don't know how I feel about this, man. The 7 divisions. I don't know what to make about. We're talking high school basketball here as we wrapped up the high school basketball season over the weekend. Ohio, for the longest time, had 4 divisions. And I talked to multiple representatives of the OHSA this past weekend, league officials that, were, board members. I talked to one member who was president of the board that said that, look, this wasn't a last summer, let's just, increase to 7 divisions. They started talking about this back in 2020. They started talking about this back in 2019, heading into 20, even before COVID truly hit. This has been on the table and in the works for quite some time. And they knew there was going to be a lot of criticism that came with the decision to go to 7 divisions. And a lot of the criticisms had a lot to do with the elimination of great experiences for the high school athletes in regards to where they play these tournament rounds at. There were so many girls teams who punched their ticket. Like if you punch your ticket to the traditional 4-division, state tournament, you're going to go to UD Arena in the semifinals and play at UD Arena. And you're going to get the same experience of playing in the state tournament, whether you're in the semifinals or finals, because you earned it. Now what ended up happening is because you have 7 divisions, you had to crown all 7 state champions in 7 different games in 2 days. And there was no way in hell you were going to be able to do 7 divisions, semifinals, and finals in that 2, 3, 4 day span. So a lot of girls teams had to end up playing their high school championship game or semifinal game. And yes, even championship game at local area high schools. I forgot which division it was, but for one of the girls' state championships semifinals, they had to play at St. Mary's High School. And no girl, no boy, no athlete dreams of playing high school basketball one day and punching their ticket to the state championship at St. Mary's High School. Those girls were robbed of an opportunity. Now, the team that won, they got to go play at UD Arena. That's great. But it was still used to be an honor and an experience to punch your ticket to the state semifinals. That was the biggest gripe. A lot of teams, didn't get to, the semifinals, even for the boys tournament. A lot of those games were played, over in Canton. Some were played at Wright State University's Nutter Center. And, you get knocked out. You're still playing at a D1 floor arena, but it's still not the same experience as, playing your full state championship weekend, semifinals, finals format at UD Arena. That was the biggest complaint that I talked to a lot of OHSA officials about this past weekend. They all agreed. They're going to be tinkering with some things they said. They don't know what it's going to look like next year. It's still going to be 7 divisions, but they are trying to find a way to tinker with it to make sure that they are maximizing the experiences for the student athletes, especially those who punch their ticket to the state championship, state tournament, semifinals and finals. But that was a big takeaway there. But I have to say, and I'm Justin Kinner, it's the Justin Kinner Show. Thank you for tuning in and hanging out with us. As much gripe as the OHSAA got, one of the advantages of jumping to 7 divisions was it was going to create more opportunities for teams to win state championships, more opportunities in the tournament for teams out there who aren't running into the same teams every year, whether it's the Lutheran Easts of the world, whether it's the Richmond Heights of the world. You're running into the same teams. I mean, I watched Rushi at the state tournament for the 3rd straight year. Richmond Heights, I mean, I was expecting to see them there. It was a surprise that they didn't get there, but that's a team that's lived in Dayton the last couple of years. It's a lot of the same teams over and over and over. It was really cool this year, though, and I don't know if it had to do with the expansion of the divisions or not. But 4 of the 7 state champions this past weekend at UD Arena were all first-time state champion winners. The Division I winner, the Division I state final between Olentangy Orange and Reynoldsburg, That was actually not just the first state championship for Olentangy Orange, that was the very first state finals appearance ever for either team. That's pretty amazing to me. We saw 4 state champions crowned over the weekend out of the 7 that had never won one before. Do those same schools win it all in the 4-division format? I don't know. But if the goal of the tournament was to expand, to give more schools and student athletes opportunities to win a championship, they succeeded. If the expansion from 4 divisions to 7 was done for competitive balance, to get more competitiveness throughout high school basketball, you have to argue that it worked. 5 of the 7 games came down to the final minutes in each one. The atmosphere for these games was fantastic. The competitiveness of these games was fantastic. And again, is that a result of the expansion to 7 divisions? Were the games close because you got more tightly contested teams, evenly matched teams due to the, kind of the stretching out the tournament a bit? Maybe. Attendance was through the roof for this state tournament. I mean, there wasn't a game that the lower bowl was just not absolutely filled. I hadn't seen that at UD Arena since it took over. I still by the way, this isn't a shot at UD Arena. The state tournament needs to be in Columbus. Columbus is the best city to host it. They just charge too much. It's as simple as that. Like, Dayton's willing to pay less to get it. Like, it's as simple as that. Dayton wants it more. That's the problem. Columbus, though, is the better experience for high school athletes. It just is. I'm not saying these kids were robbed of anything this past weekend. It was a great experience there, but Columbus is better. The shot is better. I don't care what anybody says. Everyone says, well, that's too big of an arena. That's great. But when you walk into the shot on Ohio State's campus, you feel like you're somewhere special, watching something special. I don't always get that at UD Arena. I did this past weekend, though. I thought it was fantastic. I thought the crowds were great. The competitiveness of the games were great. Got a chance to hang out with Aaron Kraft for a little bit. Dr. Aaron Kraft at that. One of my all-time favorite Buckeyes. Got a chance to talk with him. I met Mr. Basketball and Marcus Johnson, his dad, Sonny. He plays for his dad, Sonny Johnson, over at Garfield Heights. He got obviously the Mr. Basketball trophy presentation over the weekend. We got a chance to catch up with him during the pregame, so that was neat. Just a fun weekend at UD Arena. A great weekend of basketball, 7 champions crowned, a lot of great communities coming together. That was a win. With all the criticism for the OHSA, and I was critical of it too. I'm still not a fan of the format. But what I do appreciate about them is the fact that they were at least open to the criticism. They didn't shy away from it. And we discussed it at length on our shows over the weekend at UD Arena, and I appreciated their transparency. They knew it wasn't perfect, but they're still trying to iron out a lot of those things, and I wanted to pass that on either way. But what up, John? John Sladen says, Rootstown girls played their semifinal game at Claymont High School in Urshville, which was a 3-hour drive for us, which stunk, but at least they won and got to play at UD in the final. Yeah, like a lot of these teams were being thrown, stretched out all over the place. Now, here's the other thing that people get uncomfortable talking about with boys and girls sports is the business nature of it. To pay money for a Division I college arena to barely fill it up, I understand why that doesn't make good business sense. I understand that. But we're also talking about the OHSA as a nonprofit that also is sitting on millions of dollars. I have a hard time sympathizing with them for not being willing to find a way to get it done to make sure that these girls play in the biggest stage possible. And I understand the business side. Putting girls' games in high school gyms, filling up a high school gym is still going to provide them with a great atmosphere. Great atmosphere, yes. Great experience, I don't know about that. But, John, you're right. At least they won, and they got to go to UD Arena and play their championship game there. But I bet the atmosphere was good, I bet, at Claymont High School. I bet it was a good atmosphere, but the experience is still not the same as playing at UD Arena, the shot, a Division I college floor, either way. All right, good stuff. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio. Frickers, your home for fun food, sports, and spirits, of course. Let's see. Let me. Oh, by the way, especially coming up this weekend with the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 round coming up, who is going to be cutting down the nets this year? Get in on all of the tournament action at ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Go from tracking the latest upsets to placing bets in just a few taps. All tournament long, new customers can get $100 in bonus bets when you make your first $10 wager. Download the ESPN Bet Sportsbook app and sign up with promo code Radio100 to get started today. Must be 21 and older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details. It's the Justin Kinner Show right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. Let's talk a little Reds when we come back. The Reds IL list continues to get longer and longer. The Reds are supposed to play at Day-Air Ballpark tomorrow, and I'm here to tell you, I have never been more pissed off to see the Reds in Dayton, Ohio than I am right now, and I'll tell you why when we come back.
The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
When you switch to Progressive, you could save bundling your home and auto.
All right, and we are back. It's the Justin Kinner Show. We're wrapping up the 4 o'clock hour here on the show. Spring training has come and gone, kind of. The Reds are going to be playing tomorrow at Dare Ballpark here in Dayton. Now, here's where, again, I'm a horrible local host. Like, I'm always cranky about Dayton, right? Actually, I guess that's just it. Just Dayton. But even when it comes to this, just because it's in Dayton doesn't mean I have to support it. I think that this little scrimmage, this little exhibition game, this little spring training extension, I think it's the dumbest thing in the history of sports. And there's a lot of dumb things out there. You're probably saying me, and that's fine. Just because it's in Dayton, just because we're a Reds affiliate doesn't mean that I have to be a fan of it. I think it is the stupidest thing in the history of the world. You just played an entire month of spring training baseball. You hold your breath that you get through the entire thing just to have a healthy enough roster with your stars to hit the ground running on opening day coming up this Thursday, which we will have right here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Okay. I bring this up because the IL list for the Reds is getting longer and longer. Tyler Stevenson will start the 2025 season on the injured list. Spencer Steer will start the 2025 season on the IL. Andrew Abbott will start the 2025 season on the IL. And the newest addition to the Reds IL list, none other than Alexis Diaz. Now, Alexis Diaz has had a horrible spring, and some people actually believe that is a addition by subtraction. The Reds got better by not having the option to put him in a game late. Who knows what the Reds bullpen situation is going to look like in his absence. But here's the deal. Injuries, you've come this far. What are we getting tomorrow? What are we gaining tomorrow? Are some of you on the fence of being a Reds fan, but because you watch them at Dare Ballpark tomorrow, now you're all in on the Reds? The only thing that can happen tomorrow, can you guys please convince me what good can come from tomorrow? And I don't mean oh, good, I get to see the Reds at Dare Ballpark. I mean, what good? What are the Reds gaining? Are they going to gain new fans because you risked Ellie's health at Dare Ballpark tomorrow? Are you going to gain new fans? Like Hunter Green better not touch a baseball. I don't think that he is, but he better not touch a baseball. But that's the thing. You don't want Hunter Green touching a baseball. You don't want Ellie holding a bat in his hand, risking getting hurt. Matt McClain, all these guys. So you're going through all this just to play a bunch of no-name guys against future stars through the minors. And I don't really want my minor league players getting hurt either. With how banged up the actual roster is, I kind of need the minor league players to be healthy enough in case they get called upon early, which hopefully that's not the case, but that's just where we're at. Guys, I think this is dumb. I'm not a fan of it. Ann Anderson says, Ann, I hope you're doing well. She says, this is an exhibition, Justin. There will be no regulars playing. This is a celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Dragons. Ann, I love you to death. You know that. But I don't want one player getting hurt tomorrow. Not one. Not one. I don't want Ellie in street clothes stepping on a bat in the dugout at Dare Ballpark and missing time this season. I want them wrapped in bubble wrap. I want them to go home. I want them to sit in their homes in bubble wrap, and I don't want them to move. I don't want them to exert any energy. I need this roster to be as healthy as possibly they could be heading into Thursday on opening day. I think that this exhibition game is just silly. Now, Ann, you're probably not the one I should be saying this to because you are a diehard baseball and Dragons fan, and I know that you are super excited. So I am sorry that I came in here raining on your parade. I apologize. You know I love you, but man, oh man, as a fan, I'm going to be so angry with the bad luck that the Reds have. I just think you're tempting fate. Bad fate. I think you are tempting something bad to happen. I'm like I said, not a fan. Not a fan of this as we currently sit here right now, but we'll see. I'm also not a fan of Andrew Abbott, Alexis Diaz, Tyler Stevenson, and Spencer Steer starting the season on the IL, but I do think that there's enough firepower for this Reds team to still be viewed as capable to kick off the season, especially on Thursday. Think about it like this. Look at it like this. Even with the Spencer Steer and Tyler Stevenson, those are big injuries. That's a problem to me. I do. I think that over a long stretch of time, that's a problem. But I'm looking at opening day, and I'm looking at the opening series against the Giants, and here's what I see. I see Hunter Green taking the mound on opening day, game 1. Automatically love the Reds' chances there. Nick Lodolo. When Nick Lodolo has always traditionally been a hell of a pitcher in the month of April. If we get April Lodolo, okay, and I know it's March, but if we get April caliber Lodolo, the Reds are 2-0. And then you look at Nick Martinez, who was paid $22.5 million, and his stuff rivaled some of the best pitchers in baseball last year on the mound for game 3. The Reds, because of their starting pitching, are going to have a chance to win every single one of those. If we're talking about major pieces from the rotation being out, I'm concerned. I'm not concerned because as long as you have pitching, that's your best chance to win in baseball. It's as simple as that. There's no secret sauce. I mean, you look at the fact that the Guardians over the last couple of years, even going into the tail end of the Francona run in Cleveland, those Cleveland teams didn't have a ton of expectations. I mean, even the Guardians last year were projected to finish at the bottom of the division. They won 90-plus games, and why? They're pitching. Now, they had 5-6 All-Stars. That helped, too. But more times than not, the Guardians' secret sauce has always been their starting pitching. And I think that's the Reds' strength this year. I don't think they have depth at starting pitching. I think they have their strength is starting pitching, if that makes sense. I don't think they could afford many injuries there. But like I said, Andrew Abbott, hopefully it's not a long stint on the IL. Carson Spires is more than capable. He's looked lights out during spring training. Rhett Lauder, I believe, would have probably been that 5th starter if he didn't start spring on a restricted throwing program. I think that has something to do with it too. But I think we have Carson Spires and Rhett Lauder on the outside looking in on a rotation that, when healthy, is Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Nick Martinez, Andrew Abbott, and obviously Brady Singer, who you traded Jonathan India for. And then you have Rhett Lauder and Carson Spires on the outside looking in. Chase Burns on the outside looking to come in as well. Burns did an interview with MLB Network not too long ago saying that the competitiveness between him and Paul Skeens and just the competitiveness between him and Rhett Lauder as well. He saw how fast Paul Skeens was called up and the immediate impact he made, right? He also saw that Rhett Lauder was called up within a calendar year of being drafted by the Reds, and he said that that's his goal as well, to be called up, but sooner. So there's a lot of competitors in this system, and a lot of them are arms, and I think that the Reds are going to go as far as these arms will take them. Christian Encarnacion-Strand, you know what I mean? Like Candelario, Gavin Lux, Austin Hayes, TJ Friedel. Like, these are the guys that are going to have to step. You know what you get with Matt McClain. You know what you get with Ellie De La Cruz. Like, it's really going to come down to the Reds are going to go as far as their pitching takes them, yes, but they're going to go as far as Jeimer Candelario and Austin Hayes and Gavin Lux, Christian Encarnacion-Strand. Like, it's really going to be up to those guys to maximize the production that you get from Ellie De La Cruz and Matt McClain. It's as simple as that. Because if Ellie's having an all-star year and Matt McClain is picking up where he left off over a year ago, and those two are having great years, but Christian Encarnacion-Strand still looks like he's trying to learn the majors. Candelario going Candelario for 4, 0 for 5, 0 for 6. If that's happening, they're not winning many baseball games. I think a lot of the injuries to Spencer Steer and Tyler Stevenson, unfortunately, it puts a lot of pressure on the Christian Encarnacion-Strands of the world to be great and to be great right away. And that, to me, is the biggest thing for the Reds. The developmental players heading into year 2 and 3 have to be good. Strand has to be good. The new additions in the offseason, Gavin Lux, Austin Hayes, they have to be good. Candelario, the $15 million a year player they added last year, has to be good. If they're just average to below, the Reds will be average to below. They have a chance to be good, though, and it's because of that starting pitching. It's unfortunate to have those 4 names on the IL as the season's about to get underway on Thursday. I think they're all right, though. I think the Reds are going to be fine, and I think they take the opening series against the Giants starting on Thursday. It's the Justin Kinner Show presented by Frickers right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio 1410 Wing AM. Appreciate you tuning in and listening and hanging out with us here today on a Monday. Stop at one of your local neighborhood Frickers for their frickin' for their Frickin' Lunch Combo for $10.99. The Frickin' Lunch Combo features many options such as the Frickin' Chicken Chunks cheeseburgers, charbroiled chicken wrap, and the fried chicken wrap. You also get a side and a drink, all for $10.99. The Frickin' Lunch Combo is available Monday through Friday between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. Frickers, your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. This has been the Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
The Justin Kinner Show, presented by Frickers, right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.